January 7, 2024. Rome's Acca Larentia Street. Hundreds of men raise fascist salutes on camera. The video spreads globally within hours. Italian politicians stay silent. European media calls it concerning. But here's what they don't tell you. This ceremony happens every single January 7th. Same location, same ritual, same Roman salutes commemorating 3 neo-fascist militants killed on this street decades ago. The gathering never stopped. Through different governments, different decades, different political climates, every year, without fail, black-clad militants march through central Rome shouting "Present" and raising their right arms in perfect fascist formation. Italian police know the date, know the location, know the participants. They set up barriers and watch it happen. Archive footage from previous years shows identical scenes, sometimes more participants, sometimes fewer, but always the same choreographed ceremony. The chants never changed, the salutes never disappeared. The symbolism remained constant. Italian authorities always knew. European media always ignored it. Local residents grew accustomed to it, until someone filmed it clearly enough in 2024 to break through social media algorithms and reach global audiences. Suddenly, the world discovered what Rome had tolerated for decades. They never stopped gathering. The question is why democratic institutions allowed it to continue undisturbed for so long, and what that reveals about how Western societies handle uncomfortable realities they prefer to ignore. Italy's immigration system collapsed years ago. 180,000 migrants arrived in 2023 alone. Lampedusa's reception center, built for 400 people, housed 7,000. Sicily's coastal towns overwhelmed. Rome's suburbs transforming overnight. Brussels demanded quotas while Italian communities bore the reality. Traditional politicians promised solutions, delivered committees, promised integration, delivered tent cities, promised security, delivered chaos. Voters watched their neighborhoods change while being lectured about tolerance by people living in gated communities. Meloni didn't create this anger, she weaponized it. Brothers of Italy polling at 4% in 2018. Immigration crisis peaks in 2021. Meloni's numbers climbed to 26% by 2022 election. The correlation isn't coincidental. Failed policy creates political opportunity. Establishment parties ignored the pressure building underneath. Map the voting patterns. Northern industrial cities hit hardest by economic competition from undocumented workers. Brothers of Italy strongholds. Southern coastal regions dealing with daily arrivals. Fascist party majorities. Suburban areas watching rapid demographic change. Right-wing victories. The data tells the story, politicians won't. Youth unemployment in immigrant-heavy neighborhoods, 43%. Crime rates in unmanaged migration zones, up 67%. School performance in overcrowded integration areas, declining rapidly, numbers creating voters faster than campaigns ever could. But here's what mainstream analysis misses. This isn't unique to Italy. Track the pattern across Europe. Netherlands elects Geert Wilders after Rotterdam becomes 55% immigrant origin. Germany's AfD surges in regions with highest asylum seeker placement. France's Le Pen dominates areas with failed banlieue integration. Same formula everywhere. Mass immigration without infrastructure, integration without resources, demographic change without democratic input. Populations pushed past breaking point, while elites dismiss concerns as prejudice. Meloni's genius wasn't ideology, it was listening. Her rallies featured actual residents describing neighborhood changes. Her social media amplified local complaints ignored by traditional media. Her policies addressed real problems other parties pretended didn't exist. The fascist salutes at Acca Larentia represent something deeper than nostalgia. They're recruitment tools for young men watching their futures evaporate. University graduates competing with illegal workers for delivery jobs. Skilled tradesmen undercut by undocumented labor. Marriage prospects declining as economic stability disappears. Traditional left parties offered these men lectures about privilege. Traditional right parties offered them corporate tax cuts. Meloni offered them enemies to blame and promises to fight back. Not complicated psychology. Track the international coordination now spreading this model. Hungarian Viktor Orban built border walls, maintained power for 14 years. Italian Meloni implemented naval blockades. Approval ratings stay high. Dutch Wilders promised deportation applications, won elections decisively. The pattern works because it addresses real grievances through dramatic action. Failed integration creates ethnic tensions. Economic competition breeds resentment. Cultural change without consent generates backlash. Fascist movements exploit these predictable human responses. Current EU policy accelerates the problem. Migration quotas distributed by bureaucratic formula ignore local capacity. Integration funding flows through NGOs disconnected from communities. Border enforcement remains deliberately ineffective to maintain humanitarian image. Result? 3.2 million asylum applications pending across Europe. Processing times averaging 18 months. Rejected applicants rarely deported. Legal immigration nearly impossible while illegal immigration continues. System designed to maximize dysfunction. Polish elections 2023 proved the formula's limits. Law and Justice Party initially gained power through anti-immigration rhetoric, but they delivered actual border security, reduced illegal entries, maintained economic growth. Voters rewarded competence over extremism. Italian trajectory looks different. Meloni's naval policies reduced arrivals by 64% in first year. Detention centers expedite deportations. Integration programs focus on employable skills rather than cultural sensitivity. Early results suggest effectiveness over ideology, but the fascist symbolism remains. Party rallies still feature Roman eagles. Youth organizations still study Mussolini's speeches. Social media still promotes ethno-nationalist content. The question, tactical extremism or genuine transformation? European observers focus on symbols while ignoring substance. Meloni's actual policies resemble mainstream conservative positions from 2010. Controlled immigration, national sovereignty, traditional values. What changed wasn't the agenda, it was the opposition's inability to acknowledge legitimate concerns. The Acca Larentia salutes shock international media, but barely register with Italian voters. They've watched their country struggle with uncontrolled migration for decades while being told their concerns were racist. Extremist theater seems reasonable compared to extremist negligence. This creates the real danger, normalization through necessity. When mainstream politics fails to address existential challenges, extremist alternatives become acceptable. When democratic institutions ignore popular will, authoritarian promises sound appealing. Track the electoral mathematics across Europe. Immigration-skeptical parties now govern in Italy, Netherlands, Hungary, and Poland. Coalition partners in Sweden, Finland, and Austria. Major opposition forces in France, Germany, and Spain. Democratic mandate through democratic failure. American observers miss the European context entirely. U.S. immigration debates center on economic opportunity and humanitarian obligation. European reality involves civilizational questions about identity, integration, and social cohesion in post-national welfare states. The solutions require acknowledging what politicians won't say publicly. Mass immigration without assimilation capacity destroys both immigrant and native communities. Ethnic diversity without shared values creates permanent conflict. Globalist policies without democratic consent generate nationalist backlash. But admitting these realities means admitting decades of policy failure. Easier to blame extremism than examine causes. Simpler to condemn fascist salutes than address fascist appeal. More comfortable to analyze symptoms than treat diseases. The men at Acca Larentia raising their arms represent millions of Europeans raising their voices through ballot boxes. Ignoring their message guaranteed extremist messengers. Dismissing their concerns created extremist solutions. Meloni didn't return fascism to Italy. Failed governance returned Italy to fascism. The salutes are symptom, not cause. The question isn't how to stop the extremists, it's whether mainstream politics can still solve the problems that created them. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to face. What if they're right? What if mass immigration really is unsustainable? What if national sovereignty matters more than global integration? The fascists aren't winning because they're better at propaganda. They're winning because their predictions keep coming true. Crime rates, housing costs, cultural tensions, economic displacement, everything they warned about happened. Everything the establishment promised would work didn't. Maybe the problem is democracy itself.